I feel like I'm watching the wrestling again in the 90s and the villains just come out and done something absolutely ridiculous.
Of the named companies all denied the existence of these programs and attested to the truthfulness of their statements on record. Now, what that says to me isn't that we've gone down there without notice, we've just turned up, a bit of a field hearing, and just
Hmm.
around. Now, what he's done is he said, look, on Friday, what we're going to do is we'll meet at my office if you can pop in and just tell me it's true. And of course, they've come through and said it's not true. Lou Elizondo said in his response to the AARO report.
So I think for those people that are just orbiting the subject, it might put some of them off. But one thing I noticed today is they've snuck out some a little bit more stuff on the National Archives in the States.
Tom, thanks for joining me, man. This is going to be an interesting one. We're going to have a good conversation about the new AARO report. How do you feel about this report?
Um, it's I feel like I'm watching the wrestling again in the 90s and the villains just come out and done something absolutely ridiculous. It seems I'll be honest, I've not really got into the detail of it, but I've been watching News Nation and the few things that have been popping up on YouTube, and it's just preposterous. Like it seems such a silly argument to make to all of a sudden try and walk it back that far when at the end of the day, if David Grush had committed perjury, then they would have just pulled him up on it straight away, and they haven't. So why are they fighting this silly battle now?
Yeah.
But you know in a lot more detail than me.
Well, I mean, this is the thing, and you bring Grush up, and it's a great place to start because what I would have liked, and not necessarily like that's the wrong word. What I would have kind of accepted from them was we have had a scientific approach to this. This is the main big whistleblower that everyone's talking about that's kind of brought this to light more recently, and in part the reason why Arrow was set up. And we've investigated his claims first because the historic stuff we can get to as and when, his testimony was that there's these illegal programs without government oversight, and there's craft, and there's this information that could potentially change, human history going forward and our understanding of the universe, etc., etc. So you would think they would start with that, or that would
Hmm.
certainly be featured somewhere within the report. And right, what has he said? He said, I've got the locations. I've provided that information to Arrow. I've got operation names and witnesses, 40 plus witnesses, etc., etc. So for me, if I was in a position where it was my job to investigate this, that's where I start. I'm like, okay, well, this
Yeah.
is sensational stuff. This is where we start. So I've been to that location. There are 6 locations that Mr. Grush said were where the craft were being kept, reverse engineered. I've been there physically with my team. I've had access all areas because I've got access all areas. I've got all of the clearances that I need. He didn't say that at all in this report. That's not in the report at all. In fact, and I've got it in front of me, I want to read it because this is his scientific investigative approach to this really extreme claim of private entities, private companies, contractors who are aligned with the military, who are reverse engineering, who've got this stuff and it's outside of oversight and blah blah blah. So aerospace companies denied involvement in recovering extraterrestrial craft. So Arrow met with high-ranking officials, including executives and chief technology officers of the named companies, all denied the existence of these programs and attested to the truthfulness of their statements on record. Now, what that says to me isn't that we've gone down there without notice, we've just turned up, a bit of a field hearing, and just
Hmm.
around. Now, what he's done is he said, look, on Friday, what we're going to do is we'll meet at my office if you can pop in and just tell me it's true. And of course, they've come through and said it's not true. Okay, well, that's
That'll do then.
case closed. Case closed.
But
Um,
when Tim Burchett, I think I say a month, but it was probably longer, was saying they've got the ability to turn up and do field hearings or subpoena power, then this just seems like such a ridiculous, like pulled punch.
hmm, yeah. Yeah, and if you think that people like Anna Paulina Luna and Burchett and Gates could do field hearings, could go to some of these locations and ask to look around, and they are, you know, Congress people who some of whom aren't on the Armed Services Oversight Committee, all those sorts of committees where they've got slightly higher levels of access and clearances and what have you. Sean Kirkpatrick, and I appreciate it's now, what is it, Tim Phillips, the new acting director or the temporary director, whatever. But at the time, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick would have had all of the clearances, and he said that numerous times, didn't he, in his
Hmm.
statements to news outlets. So he would have been able to do that and more, but he hasn't, and that's the thing that, and that kind of sets the tone for the report from what I've read. It's essentially we haven't investigated it, we've kind of reviewed it. We've done a review. So we've looked at the documents, we've made a few phone calls, we've asked some of the people that have been mentioned by some of the whistleblowers that have come forward. Um, and, you know, they're denying it, and we can't really find anything that corroborates that. That's not investigating something. That's, that's,
No, no, you're right. I mean, the one thing I have done today is I had a look on the AARO website, and obviously it opens with this banner about if you've seen something, you can report it here. But it's not been updated since the 20 something of February. And the only cases on there for public review are, I think four of them are already debunked. The other one just looks like a dead pixel. Like one of them is definitely a seagull. And it's like, what are you even doing? Like it has nobody reported then. Is then, because surely if it comes from the public and it's not going to give away some technological secret advantage, then it shouldn't be classified if it's an open playing field. So what are they doing? It's just like watching a Punch and Judy show.
yeah. It does seem quite ridiculous. And another thing, so the language used, and there's a couple of the language used. I mean, it's very, very clever, very, very clever in the way that they do it, and it's kind of hiding in plain sight. So there's a couple of bits that I wanted to touch on. One was the way that they described the witnesses for their theory, their kind of their conclusion, and then the witnesses against their conclusion.
Hmm.
So the way that they describe the scientists and the heads of these companies is kind of, they kind of hold them in high esteem, and there's no kind of, this person said this and that's been checked because of this, and there's no issue with that testimony. There's none of that. It just says we've spoken to these executives and chief officers and leaders of these companies and scientists and what have you. And it's kind of like, the wording of that is we can trust these people. We've spoken to them and they've said this, and it corroborates what our conclusion is. But then when you get to the whistleblowers, they go into great detail in well, this person, and they didn't really see it and they misunderstood that, and they've got it from the other people who are whistle. So basically this is a big circle of whistleblowers and kind of witnesses who have come forward, and they all kind of know each other, and they're all getting bits of information from each other in a big kind of circle and feeding off each other. And that's kind of the way they've portrayed it. And they went to great lengths to throw shade on Luz Elizondo and ATIP and ORSAP. And so, yeah, we've got. I want to read this out as well because this was the response from Luz Elizondo. So,
Oh, cool.
Luz Elizondo said in his response to the AARO report, today the Pentagon and its UAP investigative program, AARO, issued a public report that is intentionally dishonest, inaccurate, and dangerously misleading. Just imagine him stroking the. Um, go on. Um, I like it, Lou. I like it. It's fine. It's cool. I hold the Pentagon leadership and former AARO leadership accountable for this obvious attempt to diminish and embarrass whistleblowers, to undermine the truth and ignore the evidence. Their goal is clearly to minimize congressional and public scrutiny and to cover up the truth. To be clear, I do not hold most of the people who work within AARO to be accountable, as they are not all responsible for their leaders' decisions. Many of us who have worked many of us who have worked the UAP topic for government are aware of the ample classified evidence that has been provided to AARO and contradicts this report. Senior members of Congress have also had access to this evidence. This report only makes it more abundantly clear to Congress that they must take more legislative action to demand transparency on the UAP topic on behalf of the American people. Myself and others who are aware of the truth are going to keep working to help Congress in their efforts to achieve disclosure. That was Lou Elizondo's statement immediately after the report dropped. What do we make?
Wow.
And Tom, what do you reckon?
Lou Elizondo with the steel chair. That was pretty he doesn't mince his words, does he?
He doesn't, and if I was in his shoes and I'm telling the truth and I'm being honest and open and transparent and I'm kind of fighting over classification and government secrecy and hiding this huge thing from the public, I would be pretty annoyed if not the entire report, but huge chunks of the report have been designed and worded to basically make it look as if I've made this stuff up. And
Yeah.
it's a great detail to say that ATIP wasn't an official program. It was kind of ORSAP turned into ATIP and they kind of did it in their spare time. And they had a whole paragraph explaining that some of these people who are interested in the UFO topic kind of worked on this in their spare time. And it was none of the other reports within the report. They make note of several different kind of cases and reports and people that have investigated it and papers that have been written in the past. They don't kind of say that and I'm sure lots of those were the same as well, but very specifically ATIP. ATIP was not a proper.
Yeah,
So
the way he's worded that, it's like when you have a wet weather day in school and you can take a game and it's like, oh, okay, so it's rainy today, kids. So instead of lunchtime, you can work on some UFO stuff for an hour over your lunch, Luke. Like that's such a patronizing way for them to put these people that have put their entire careers into the betterment of the public. It's a really disrespectful way to go about it, isn't it?
it is, and they didn't need to do that, but they
No.
intentionally chose to. They thought, what we're going to do here is we're going to discredit Luz Elizondo, who is a very powerful figure in the pro-disclosure
Mm.
side of the debate. And if you kind of get him, if you kind of rubbish him and throw a shade over him, then really all you've got left is David Grush. And I think they had to be a bit more careful with Grush because he's still got this whistleblower complaint that's outstanding and being investigated.
Yeah. But
So
didn't they is it the IG, the Investigator General? Like he said he sees everything. And he said that Grush's complaints were valid and urgent or
yeah,
words to that effect. So like really they're taking on he's taking on everybody. It's ridiculous.
yeah. So urgent and credible, I think he said.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean that's the thing, isn't it? The ICIG that's the Intelligence Community Inspector General because they've got an Inspector General for different parts. It's not just one, isn't it? Obviously, it's different
Hmm.
from over here in the UK the way they work there. But it's that they still took shots at Grush. It was just a lot more vague in the way that it was worded. But it was essentially nothing that he said has been verified. They've gone as far as to say we don't. In other words, we don't think he's lying, but he misunderstands. He's perhaps misrepresented, or that he it might be sort of it might be his honest interpretation of an actual government operation or project that he's misunderstood as alien or whatever.
I can imagine David Grush as the guy that handed the president his intelligence briefing, but being prone to making mistakes and jumping to conclusions like that. Definitely. Yeah, yeah, of course.
Yeah. If you look at his credentials, he does seem like the sort of person that wouldn't really check properly, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. That's ridiculous. I mean, do you know what? Um, the one thing that really I get out of this is that we being on the side of disclosure or at least thinking that there's something going on, we can be wrong as many times as they like, but the first time, the first time that they get proved wrong, it's game over.
Yeah.
So all the pressure's on them, and it's showing. Like I genuinely, I know people have been saying this for like 80 plus years, but I genuinely feel like we're in the end game.
Mm. Yeah, and I think they've got. I think what people find so difficult, and it is because it's not a level playing field. It's kind of it's like we are playing a game of, let's use the example of football or soccer or whatever you want to call it, wherever you are in the world. One team's got kind of all of the big players. One team's got kind of the billionaire money, and the other team's a Sunday league, and that's us. We're the
Hmm.
Sunday because we've got good people who really care and who are passionate, but we haven't got the money. We don't hold all the classified information. We don't get to decide what gets disclosed and what doesn't. And well, we'll put that out because that will go in our favor, and we'll declassify that bit of information because that will help us put across our conclusion that we want. But we won't release that information. We haven't got, DOPSA. I'm not even going to try and pronounce what it means, but essentially where you have to go through them for publication of
Hmm.
information or any information really. You want to write a book or do a film, if you're in the intelligence community, you have to go to them
Mm-hmm.
and they
Yeah.
decide what you can say. So they get to decide all of that. So it's kind of, they've got all of that, all of the power and all of the influence and all of the money and all of the connections. And then we're the Sunday League football team that have got, some really passionate people, but we've got none of that. And so it's not a level playing field. And I think that's why it kind of hurts, because we know in our hearts what is true, but we can't kind of get to that vault that they've got access to. You
We
know what
haven't got that soapbox, yeah. Well, I think I'd respectfully say that we haven't got a level playing field, but like we've got the high ground, Anakin, because like I said, like they can keep knocking it back, but uh, it's inevitable. It is inevitable, and it hasn't got to come from them. So you've got Soul Foundation, which has just teamed up like the Avengers in the last year.
Yeah,
You've got Galileo Project. You've got a lot of very talented people, very hungry for a Nobel Prize. And because it is true, then at some point somebody's just going to go, ta-da! Now what? And all of the lies and confusion that they've caused, the obfuscation is just going to go poof. So they must be sweating. A very select amount of people, perhaps with an interest in keeping it quiet, must be really struggling to sleep at night.
yeah. What do you think their game plan is then? Because if they know, and they've got analysts that are going to look at every possible outcome of this, and they'll sit down and go, right, well, this could happen, and we'll plan for this, and we'll cover this by doing that. So they've got a game plan, and they're following it through right now.
Hmm.
Now, this is my take on it, and I'm interested in knowing what your take is. But
Mm.
I think what they are trying to do is they know that we are going to call BS on this. We're not going to, we're going to laugh at this, and we expected this from day one. But they don't care about that. What they care about is we are a small select group of people across the entire world.
Hmm.
Most people, this doesn't even touch the radar, and it's not even in their bubble. So they don't care about us. They know that we're going to call it out. We're going to use these examples to disprove that and discredit this part of the report, and et cetera, et cetera. But that's not what they're interested in. What they're interested in, I think, is the majority of the world. You put this report out, the press pick it up, the press say no evidence of extraterrestrials or recovered craft, put it to bed. This is all silly. And the only people that have got power to hold them to account is Congress.
Hmm.
Now, Congress are democratically elected, as far as I understand it, not knowing all that much about the American politics, or how it all works. But I'm assuming they're democratically elected, the Congress people and senators, and they have to be re-elected. And they bring forward what the people are interested in. And if the people lose interest, the majority of the people lose interest in this subject, then they have to work on the things that people are interested in. So I think the game plan is to make those other people think that this is a silly subject and should you really be wasting your time on it, so that those
Mm.
people in Congress that are interested in it and have had a lot more interest in the last year or so because of David Grush and Congress and congressional hearings, etc., maybe they fall away from this subject and then they've succeeded. We've got the report, we've done it, we've put all the money and the effort into creating AARO, we've done all of this, we don't want to do it anymore. We've got other more important things to be dealing with. So let's stop talking about this now. And then all you've got left is perhaps Tim Burchett and maybe Anna Paulina Luna still talking about it, maybe Jared Moskowitz. But that's about it. They've got other things to do. You've got an election year, etc., etc. That's my thought. What do you reckon?
I think that's painfully accurate. To be honest, you're absolutely right. I think your average um, scrolling human being out there with a 9 to 5 and a busy life that just surfs the headlines is probably going to be. I mean, I think the fire was getting pretty big and growing pace quite rapidly up till today. And yeah, just like you said, I think this is going to put it out for a lot of your average sort of news viewers. I mean, I know since I've started doing this with you, like a lot of my friends that have had no interest in it before are like, "Go on then, tell us about this. I've seen it on the news. I've seen Chris Sharp's article. I've seen something pop up on YouTube." So I think for those people that are just orbiting the subject, it might put some of them off. But one thing I noticed today is they've snuck out some a little bit more stuff on the National Archives in the States. So there's a UFO account, a really like I mean, it's so clear that it's either something from Thunderbirds or it's an amazing photograph from the Goddard Space Center. There's footage from the 100th Atlas missile launch, where the booster rocket was re-entering and kind of breaking up. But there's this thing. Now, granted, the nature of this is a very destructive thing, and they tend to come down in like those burning finger things. But it's being followed by a little orb. But the question is, why post that? Because that happens all the time. But they've deliberately said this is anomalous. And why today? So it's almost like, all right, we'll smash the headlines out there and just quietly move the needle a little bit on this side. So there's also the CIA have put a placeholder image and a description which says an anomalous object moving with absolutely wacky physics that doesn't fit anything that any of our vehicles can do. The video's incoming, but it's not quite there yet. But the CIA are all of a sudden getting involved, and they're phenomenally known for just having their hands behind their backs with this subject. So it's that old saying of absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence, in my opinion. And they're just, I think, a little bit spooked by the fact that so many people have got behind the subject so quickly. So it's like, okay, wait, but just quietly move the arrow a little bit further. So I think you're absolutely right, but I still think there is some form of deadline to get this out into the public lexicon.
Yeah. I mean, that would make sense. It's so confusing, isn't it? It's just so confusing, because
Mm,
you get these mixed signals. One minute you think we're actually going to get something here. Even Sean Kirkpatrick, when he did that kind of, I hope it is. I can't remember the exact wording of it, but it's like I hope it is ET, because
yeah.
otherwise we've got something in our back gardens, and that's even more dangerous. What does that mean? You know?
Mm,
Oh, but by the way,
yeah.
there's something there. Well, is there something in the back garden that we need to worry
Yeah.
about? There. Which one is it?
Yeah, make your mind up. Yeah, Jacques Vallée at the Soul Conference had a really morbid speech like that. He said, it's not okay to know the 98% because the 2% can kill you, as Marie Curie found out. And it's like, well, Jesus, Jack, you didn't have to go there, but like we get the point. And why aren't Kirkpatrick and the Pentagon still at least using that narrative? You know, they've had the thing with the Chinese spy balloons, which they showed you two of, and then Ross Coulthard said you need to look at the third one. It was anomalous, and yet still that's just not made it back into the headlines. So I feel like it's this two steps forward, one step back thing, and it's really weird. It's really weird. I don't know what's going on, but I do think, like Jen said in the interview, I think in 5 years' time that it's going to be like watching a puppy grow. We won't realize the progress that's been made, but we're going to actually look and see, like, oh my God, look how far we've come.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. Uh, One other thing that I'd noticed from the report is the terminology around what the phenomenon is. So
Mhm.
go to great lengths to implant the word extraterrestrial. I think 64 times I counted. So when I
Wow.
say I counted, I just put the word extraterrestrial in the bottom of the search bar and it came up with 64. Um, so then I put in non-human, non-hyphen human, and it came up with only one time that was used. And that was used as a not as something that not we felt that this wasn't non-human or whatever. It was a somebody asked, is this non-human or something to that. So it's kind of like we had to use the word non-human. We didn't want to, but we kind of had to.
Hmm.
And then the word interdimensional, which obviously, as we know, Grush was talking about a fair bit.
Yeah. And
Uh,
Luna.
Luna was talking about, and quite a few others had started to talk about it. Say, well, we're not, but Chet as well, we're not talking about little green men here. And he was he's used that term quite a few times. We're not talking about little green men.
Hmm.
So it seems to be steering in the direction of something else. And one of those something else options is interdimensional. And so,
Hmm.
can you guess how many times the word interdimensional was used in this 100 and whatever it was, 66 page? I can't remember how many pages. It's a big document. How many times do you reckon that word was used in this document, Tom?
I'm gonna go with no more than half a dozen.
So the answer is zero.
Wow.
Zero. Not once. Now, I
Hmm.
tried the word inter hyphen dimensional or all one word interdimensional. And I mean, I could be wrong, but it's got zero. And I've screenshot it and I whacked it up on Instagram, zero. So
Yeah, that's just
some
crazy.
some would
Just
argue
crazy.
that perhaps they think or they believe that there is no chance this is ET
Yeah.
for whatever reason. And so plausible deniability. Well, we've put out these pictures of orbs on the AARO website. We've told you that UAPs are real. We've said that it's a risk, it's a threat. We've pumped loads of money into it. But we were telling the truth that it wasn't ET because interdimensional, intradimensional time
The
travel.
old Scooby-Doo reveal. It's interdimensional the whole time.
Yeah.
But that reminds me, though, the way that you said that, of the interview that Lou Elizondo did on the Theories of Everything podcast, and that we're probably talking about 3 years ago now. But he was saying very humbly and very cryptically that it might be time to reassess what we consider human to be. So it might not be extraterrestrial, and obviously this is nothing but speculation, and I'm not putting words in Lou's mouth, but is it something biologically compatible or related to us, which is freaking them out a little bit? Which, okay, cool, it's not extraterrestrial. It's weird in that it's us, in a manner of speaking. Maybe it's some sort of angle like that, but like I said, that's serious speculation time.
Yeah. Well, it could be, couldn't it? I mean, it could be, it could even be our understanding of the universe, or us as in the Pentagon, our understanding of the universe is that it's not what we would now consider, with all of the information, extraterrestrial, because we know that that word means something different now, if that
Hmm.
makes sense. And so, but I don't know. I mean, what's to stop them from just trying to throw out ET, because ET is the most little green men is really hard for people to get on board with. It's silly.
Yeah.
We're now putting this paper out that says it's silly, so everyone just move on to something else. I don't know.
Hmm.
I don't
I
know.
don't know. I've had the feeling for a while that and certainly Lou and Chris Mellon have implied. Um, Actually, I still want to hear Chris Mellon's. That's the one that's like I'm waiting for that Stone Cold entrance music and Chris Mellon to come in and say something absolutely apocalyptic. But um, yeah, it's just such a weird situation for them to be so clear in certain aspects, like saying it's definitely not extraterrestrial, but then so vague about stuff which has literally been in the public news,
Mm.
like extra dimensional or interdimensional. Like Senator Luna was saying that, and she's not even, she's not nerdy into this like the rest of us are, which means it's something she's heard at work.
Yeah.
So to leave that out, you're getting to negligence of duty or whatever the appropriate term is. I don't know. I don't want to cast too many
Well,
aspersions or anything, but
I mean, you've hit the nail on the head there, and this comes on to my next quote from the report, which I love. And now, if you remember, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick was very, very, very clear that this report was not going to be sensational. It was going to be based on science. So, with science in mind, here's a quote. This is from the German dude who's found this cool thing, and I put it up on Instagram. It's a good find here because it sums up the entirety of this report. And it's a quote. Although many UAP reports remain unsolved, AARO assesses that if additional quality data were available, most of these cases could be identified and resolved as ordinary objects or phenomena. So what he's saying is
most.
we haven't got the evidence, but if we had the evidence, then we'd be able to identify these things.
Most. That's just ridiculous. That's such, I mean, like if surely, surely if he's trying to do his job, and it's probably harsh to pile it all on Kirkpatrick because everybody's got a boss, but it just takes one. Like if we can just the language he should be using if he's optimistic about this is if we can find one thing which is irrefutable proof of something that we didn't make, we've done our job. We've got things to learn, people. We've got things to talk about. But he's literally saying, whatever turns up, it's probably a seagull, or swamp gas. So it's Blue Book 2.0 all over again, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's the problem. When you say that this is going to be science led, and then you belittle everything that's ever happened in the past with, um, if there was more data on this case, it would be nothing. It would be just a silly, it would be resolved as a balloon. That's not science. You can say, we've got no evidence on this. There's some cases that are extraordinary and we haven't got the data. So therefore we have to park that one unless we find some other way of getting more data in the future with some new technology that can assess that material or that footage or that photo, whatever. Fair enough. But most of these cases could be identified or resolved as ordinary objects or phenomena if we had the data. What? it's just, it's extraordinary and also ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't want to accuse him of drinking on the job, but yeah, that's just but such a bizarre thing to say given the position that he's got, which is to head up the all domain anomaly office. Like you're either looking for it or you're trying to deny it, and that language you are actively trying to deny anything, and it's such
Yeah,
a bizarre hill to choose to die on, as they say.
yeah. Yeah, so yeah, that's kind of where we are with it. And what I would say is, and I was thinking about this a lot today, and I think that I've probably got a similar feeling to a lot of people that are kind of our way of thinking. And that is
Hmm.
that for some strange reason, I felt quite negative about the subject today.
Mm.
Because I think there's a small part of all of us that kind of hopes that we'd have something in there, just something that we could say, okay, that's interesting. So we know there's going to be a lot of secrecy, but there's something there that they've said that, there's something to this. And they haven't. They've just belittled everything. And whatever they can't belittle, they've just found a way, like this quote here, to just say, well, even if we had, more data, we'd be able to disprove all of that. And I think I was thinking a lot about that. Why did I feel negative about it? Because it's unusual. We knew exactly what was going to be in this report before they, they'd set up AARO, and we kind of knew where it was going to go. It was run by the Pentagon. We're investigating ourselves, and we've decided that we did nothing wrong. So marking your own homework.
Mm.
So we shouldn't feel that way, but I know that we do, and I guess it's my kind of message to anybody listening, and anybody that's kind of on this kind of journey with us, that you got to try not to take this hit personally, because we saw it coming, we called it at day one, and it's not going to stop. The example that you use of the snowball down the mountainside, it's coming, and they can't put it back in the box. So I think,
Yeah, Senator Burchett, he put it great for me when he said that you always catch the most flack when you're over the target. And this is just the last desperate like kick against the breaking of the dam, isn't it? It's ridiculous. It's
yeah,
ridiculous. What I would say though, as a shameless plug, is if you want to get in part of the community, then come and get in the Discord, and then we can give each other a little group hug and tough it out together.
yeah, definitely. Well, this is it. I mean, we've got, yeah, and I know for a fact. I don't know for a fact. That's a lie. I suspect that David Grush probably jumps in and out of. He's probably got a burner Twitter account. And he just sees what's happening, because he's
Mm.
see that he's looking into the what's happening in the community. And so, if he happens to stumble across this podcast, just DM us, jump in, let's have some conversation. Same with Lou Elizondo. I've been trying to get Lou. I thought I did at one point, and then I haven't. So if you're listening, Lou Elizondo, jump on. Let's have a conversation. We're nice guys.
We've
Yeah,
got your back.
yeah, definitely. Tom, just before we go, you've just put something on YouTube, haven't you? Give us a quick summary of what this latest video is about, triangles.
Oh, shameless promotion, but thank you very much. I have. So I woke up this morning and I saw the news and it was doom and gloom, and I felt that doom and gloom. So I thought I'd put out a little detective story for everyone that I've been following for the last couple of years, to be honest, which is a 10-minute investigation video into the black triangle phenomena because it was quite prevalent over the UK, but then seemed to stop at the same point that satellites and things like that for reconnaissance became a bit more of a popular choice. So I've just done a little video on that because I think I might have drawn a speculative line around things like the Calvine photograph, the famous sighting of the oil rig, and a few other things. So, yeah, if you want a distraction from all the doom and gloom, that'd be awesome if you check it out.
Very nice. And just for the shameless plug, Dimebag V3, all one word. Very nice. In association with UAP files, we're one big family.
100%.
Cool. Okay. Well, let's call it a night there then. What I'm going to do is I'm gonna stick this out straight away, because
Hmm.
I think it needs to be. So I'm
Yep.
going to do that. I'm going to burn the midnight oil, as they say. And so therefore, this will be published before the Jennifer Carmody podcast, which is going to be technically today at 10 p.m. GMT, because we are Sunday in the UK, only just. So you're going to be jumping into so we're going to do a premiere for that,
Hmm.
aren't we? And you're going to be in the comments on that. I'm not going to be able to, because I'm going to be super committed when it goes live. But you're going to kind of hold the fort and jump in there if that's cool.
With pleasure. Yeah, absolutely. So jump in on the chat there and we can chew the news because I'm sure the next 24 hours is probably going to be quite spicy on the social media front as well. So it'd be good to see you there.
Absolutely. Nice one. Cheers, Tom. Take care of yourself, man. Get some
Uh,
sleep.
All right, mate. Take it easy. See you.